Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijanna Vallabha Giridhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivartakacharya Sirasata Sri Śrimad Chidananda Goswami Shlesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivartakacharya Srasata Sri Śrimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Gangamayi Ki Jai. Jamunmayi Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're reading Śrimad Bhāgavatam, and the verses 3:23, 22. Oh, he is. Uh-oh. Maharaj, I will try to do something that's... Anyway, I will try. The purport didn't give a lot of... what's going on here? SB 3:23, 22, correct? Okay. Oops. What's going on? I had this set up, and when I unplugged, anyway, no excuse. All right. We chanted Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, right? Okay. Is this right? Okay, yeah. Idrigriham tat pachyantim Nati pritena cetasa Sarva bhutashaya bhigya Prabhu chat kardama swayam Idrigriham tat pashyantim Nati pritena cetasa Sarvabhutashaya bhigya Prabhu chat kardama swayam Idrigriham tat pashyantim Nati pritena cetasa. Sarva bhutashaya vigya. Pravochat kardama swayam. Others? Idrigriham tat pashyantim. Nati pritena cetasa. Sarvabhuta shaya vigya. Pravochat kardama swayam. Idrigriham tat pashyantim. Nati pritena cetasa. Sarvabhuta shayabhigya. Pravochat kardama swayam. Idrigriham tat pashyantim. Nati pritena cetasa. Sarvabhuta shayabhigya. Pravochat kardama swayam. Ladies. Idrigriham tat pashyantim. Nati pritena cetasa. Sarvabhuta shayabhigya. Pravochat kardama swayam. Idrigriham tat pashyantim. Nati pritena cetasa. Sarvabhuta shayabhigya. Pravochat kardama swayam. Idrik, such. Griham, house. Tat, that. Pashyantim, looking at. Na ati pritena, not much pleased. Cetasa, with a heart. Sarvabhuta, of everyone. Ashaya abhigya, understanding the heart. Pravochat, he addressed. Kardama, Kardama, Svayam, personally. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. When he saw Devahuti looking at the gigantic, opulent palace with a displeased heart, Kardama Muni could understand her feelings because he could study the heart of anyone. Thus, he personally addressed his wife as follows. Purport. Devahuti had spent a long time in the hermitage, not taking much care of her body. She was covered with dirt, and her clothing was not very nice. Kardama Muni was surprised that he could produce such a palace. And similarly, his wife Devahuti was also astonished. How could she live in that opulent palace? Kardama Muni could understand her astonishment, and thus he spoke as follows. Oma Gyanatmrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bangalandaya Gitikam Kratki Patamam Vandaya. With your permission, I'll try to elaborate. There are some interesting elements that when I first read this verse in purport this morning and said, oh, I have to give class, well, what do I talk about here? It seems to be my recent lot, to have verses and purports that don't, they're not filled with different philosophical points that you can then expound upon. And it's just, we're in the story, right? We're in the story right now. It's a pretty amazing story. And this particular verse brings out some of the interesting elements of this story. How you have this couple, Kardama and Devahuti, extraordinary persons. You have this personality, Devahuti, a princess, grown up, born in vast, the daughter of the emperor of the universe. I mean, you can't get much better than that, in terms of position and opulence and Swayambhuva he had great opulence. So Devahuti is been brought up in this. And yet the power of her character was such that she willingly, joyfully entered into the austere forest life of Kardama, who had a simple cottage called here his hermitage. Now it's a good word, hermitage, right? I mean, we apply that term hermitage to hermits. What's a hermit? Someone who lives generally by themselves. Of course, now Devahuti is there, but still without much care for the outer world. In contemporary modern society, a hermit is generally portrayed as a man. You've seen pictures of the kind of disheveled clothing, long hair and beard, nothing cut, just really an avadut in many respects, not caring for the externals. And Devahuti accepted that life. So here we find, in the previous verse, we find that when Kardama, it wasn't like he thought about it, and okay, now let's prepare. He didn't make architectural drawings. He didn't prepare a schematic of what he would produce, but he just had a desire. He had an intention to honor the sacrifices that his wife had made to be with him in his ashram, to serve him, to honor those sacrifices and to satisfy her need for a child. And a child born in the most favorable way. Now, favorable circumstances for childbirth are many, and they, of course, the fundamentals are the sanskaras, the Garbhadan sanskar that is performed in order to invite the soul to come. But Devahuti also considered that for the success of this union, that there should be a good place as well. There should be the proper environment. So based on her desire, knowing that desire, and filled with the power to manifest material elements according to his desire, his yogic power, simply by his desire, this castle in the air manifested. And Kardama was astonished to see what had come forth out of his yogic power. He didn't, as he said, he didn't plan it out and, specifically calling upon the... I don't know how this works at all. How do these yogic powers work? But I have some speculations. One of them is based on the fact that there are personalities behind everything in the material world. There are 330 million devatas who are doing something that I also don't understand. But somehow, so I had this, they kind of heard the call and got together and said, hey, Kardama wants a palace. Let's give it to him. Let's really give it to him. Whoa, hey, Vayu, hey, Agni, hey, let's really produce something. This is Kardama, and this is Devahuti, and who will come out of it? Let's create something just so wonderful. But now we see that Devahuti is also but in a very different way. She's thinking, how can I enter into such an environment the way I am? The word used here is na atipritena. Atipritena would mean very, very pleased, right? That's what you would expect. You would expect that Devahuti would see this and be, oh, atipritena, but no, she's na atipritena. She's not pleased because she feels unfit physically to enter into such an environment. And as we'll see in the next verses, Kardama has a solution for that as well. And it turns out all wonderful. So the nice story, it's a wonderful story. But then I was thinking, well, what more can I say? And there's a word that popped out to me in this verse. Kardama is described here, ashaya abhigya. Verse 1 says, sarva bhuta ashaya abhigya. That he has abhigya, he has knowledge, he understands. Okay? What? He understands ashaya. Now, those of you of some Bengali or I think Hindi may be the same. Asha. We sing this every morning, right? More Abhilash, more Amar, what is it in Guru? Yes, but also in the Guru Puja. Guru Padma Bhakya Chitete Korea Aika Arna Koryo Mane Asha. What is it also? Ashaya Bandha, right? Is another place we hear this term Asha. Sometimes translated as hope, desire. It can be. But here it is the desire of one's heart, abhilasha. Arna koryo mone asha. The desire. Kardama was an expert in empathy. He had the quality of empathy to its fullest extent. Sarva bhuta. Not only could he was empathic in respect of his own wife's heart and feelings. He was empathic for everyone. He could appreciate what's in the heart of anyone. It's not easy. I know myself, I find it difficult to really understand the heart of somebody. People don't, some people wear their heart on their sleeves, right? They just, it's like, but even then, is it real? What's really going on in a person's heart? What's they really feeling? Not easy. It's actually one of the yogic powers to see the heart of someone. Now, we heard yesterday, and I think it was someone was describing from Bhāgavatam how, in general, the devotees do not aspire, and they don't. In fact, the Lord keeps away various yogic powers from the devotees because they could be distracting. But this power of sarvabhuta ashaya, abhigya, we see this demonstrated in many great devotees. Our Srila Prabhupada, he certainly had a great power to know the heart of someone. Better, often the devotee, you'll hear on the memories of devotees talking about Srila Prabhupada, saying, he knew me better than I know myself. He could see deeper into because we often don't know our hearts. I suppose all of you have been in kirtan, where the kirtan leader calls out, with your heart, right? How many times you've heard that? Yeah. Chant, with your heart. This is a little new in our society. It's not something that I never heard this in kirtan in Henry Street or so on. But, and so when I first started hearing, I said, well, what does that mean? Heart. What are you talking about, heart? What's my heart? I started thinking about what does that really mean, heart? God, I know I have a mind. And that's another interesting thing about this particular verse. Because in the first word is chaitasa, which is translated as with a heart. Now, chaita is, I believe, and I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I believe it's related to the term chitta. And chitta is best, or at least generally translated, as consciousness. Once, when I gave the talk in Tuesday, and I was talking about meditation, and so in preparation, I looked into a little bit about the Ashtanga Yoga system and how meditation fits in. Is this okay? Everyone can hear okay? How meditation fits in. Is this? And I'm just noticing it just like slowly falling. What's falling? The microphone, yeah. Anyway, okay. So there's one of the Yoga Sutras, I think it's right in the beginning, is yoga, and this I just learned this, so don't think I'm a great scholar. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. That yoga is the practice and the process of chitta vritti nirodha. Nirodha means to basically wind up, shut down. Chitta vritti, chitta meaning consciousness, And vritti, meaning all the mental elements that occupy our consciousness. Now, when we think about mind, we also have heard mind is the place of thinking, feeling, and willing. And feeling we also generally associate with the heart. So, how does this all relate? So when I first heard this, chat with your heart, so what, does that mean, with good focus? With full attention? With feeling? Often that is, okay, with feeling. Feeling what? Anyway, gradually it's kind of sunk into me that what's being requested is that we enter into the kirtan with full attention, born out of a desire, an asha, a feeling or a feeling of desire that we want to experience, and the connection of service in kirtan. So these are some thoughts that I've had about what it means when we're called to chant from our heart. But still, the questions come about the relationship, for me at least, the relationship between chitta and vritti and riddha. Then we hear that Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hriddhi sanivishto. I am seated in everyone's heart. He used there the term is hridha. So hridha and chitta, how are they related? I was hoping to give you an answer, but it's a work in progress. Part of that work in progress, for me at least, has been something that I'm recommending to all of you. If you have the time, you can, while you're doing something else, I'm sure many of you do listen to things while you're cooking or you're, cleaning or whatever, that you're doing with your body and your hands, and you have some space in the mind area, brain area to accommodate more. So you listen, and podcasts or talks or whatever. So I've been listening to this series that I think someone posted in one of our groups. It's called The Atma Paradigm by Akandadi, and I am blown away. It's brilliant. It's really brilliant in the way that it is, and I haven't completed it. It's like 30, 40 different 1-hour talks. And I'm now, and he gets into the science. He really, first of all, he tears apart, so expertly, he tears apart the contention, the arrogant contention of so-called, Prabhupada would call them, I am kind of towards the age where perhaps I can be excused for calling people rascals. Can I do that? Yeah? The rascal scientist, yes. Everyone out there on YouTube land, okay, I did it, I said it. Rascals. Oh. Of course, today's age, rascal? What's a rascal? There are other words that people use today that would be a lot more powerful, but I won't use those. But I can say that they're rascal scientists, and the rascaldom is, which is so well portrayed, but he really pulls it out. The rascaldom of saying this is science when it's just speculation and it's just a religion. It's their religion, their belief system. There's no evidence for their belief system. Physicalism, that everything, that consciousness is a product of the physical world, the world that they study, or they think they study, because even the world that they study, they can only see so far, and then it's all speculation. No one's seen a quark. No one's seen and there's something called the Higgs boson. If you've, maybe Krishna Kripa, you're familiar with. Okay, so they have quantum mechanics, and they're all theories about how things work, and so there's something missing, and to kind of fit it all together, and so they don't know what it is, but so they give it a name called the Higgs boson, and they're looking for it. Okay. And I think through particle accelerators, they spend billions of dollars to smash bits of matter to try to find this elusive particle that they can never see. So what to speak of that perspective of the material world, still there's some evidence at least. Okay, they can't see it, but there's some other mathematical or experimental evidence that can be used to say that this appears to be the way things happen. But when it comes to consciousness arising out of matter, there is zero evidence. In fact, all of the evidence goes the other direction. And if you listen to this series, you'll get to understand a bit more about it. The most fundamental is called the hard problem of consciousness. Some of you, Natavar is shaking his head. He knows what the hard problem is. You've heard of it. You know what it is. Here, okay. The hard problem, and I'm only going to spend a few minutes on this, but I'm hoping to whet your appetite to get into this, because I think I found it not only really useful to be able to cement and further build up my faith in what we're going to be hearing from Kapila, because Kapila is going to start to talk to us about Sankhya, and this is Vedic science that anyway, it's this these talks have really built a lot of my faith in how powerful the science of the Vedas is. But anyway, in the hard problem is the question of qualia. Now, this webinar series asks in one of the episodes. So, write in the poll if you've ever heard the term qualia. Okay, so you've heard the term qualia. Do you know what it means?
Something, but the qualia is like your experience of that. So how does that experience come about? I mean, that, right? Yeah. That's what qualia is.
That's like the classic example is a red ball. That's the classic about. So when we see a red ball, we perceive consciously, we see redness. So redness is qualia. There's a blue ball. And there's a qualia of blueness. There's a qualia of, but Krishna says, I'm the taste in water. So taste is qualia. Thoughts, all kinds of things that we perceive, we're conscious of. That's qualia. What we're conscious of, basically all that's real to us is qualia. Because qualia is what we perceive. That qualia is derived from a physical world, but we can't explain how the signals of light entering to the eye and being processed by the brain and so on produces a picture in our consciousness. When we look at a red ball, how does that picture of a red ball appear to us in our consciousness? That's the hard problem. We can explain how, the neurons and they fire and they create, they connect and so on, but how does that result in a picture that we see? And then but that's the hard problem, and there's no answer in physicalism. There's no answer to that problem if you say it's the brain. The brain's doing it somehow. So now they've given up on that the brain is, and they've coined a term called epiphenomena. That somehow all of this together, somehow something just happens. Boop, bursts out of all this rascal science. I can see how Srila Prabhupada, how, he, even in his day, much of this was still being, talked about and so on, neuroscience. It was still in its, infancy, but it was still, the whole idea, probably no, this is still in the 80s and 90s, but there is, the so-called progress of scientific inquiry has led to all kinds of newer speculations on these topics that further and further and further dig the hole of the modern scientific approach. And Akantati Prabhu is doing a great job in laying out the holes in this. But the other thing that I've been getting from this is a better understanding of these layers of mind, consciousness, mind, brain, and the external world. Mind is sitting there. We have a subtle body. And I am proposing from this verse here that these two things, chitta and riddha, are part of that, I should say, riddha and chitta and mana are all related. I was trying to go a little deeper. Okay, is riddha or asha, is it simply seated in mana, in mind? We hear about that, that mind is the seat of thinking and feeling and willing. But then it seems that there's also in chitta and consciousness, when we get to the heart, real heart, then we start to get the heart of us, asa, we, ourselves. Ultimately, who are we? We are these atma, we are these conscious beings. And I suggest that have a quality of consciousness. And I suggest that ultimately, when we speak of heart, we're speaking of our actual self, fully who we are. What else are we? We have no real power over the material world. Whatever power we can exhibit, it's really just the prakriti kriyamanani, gunai karmani sarvasha, ahankar, vimudatma, kartaham iti manyate. We think we're doing, but it's the modes of nature. Our acting, the hands, the bodies, the brain, the senses, they're all acting under the modes of nature. We think we're doing all of this, but it's being carried out by nature. But it is being carried out according to a power that we do have. We have asha. We have the power of intention. That's to quote somebody else. Power of intention. We have the power of desire. Desire is our power. We want, we desire, we hope, we have, and that brings forth, that first of all, it draws our attention. According to our desire, our attention, what is that? Well, where attention goes, energy flows. Right? Where does attention go? It goes where desire. Your desire brings forth your attention. That's why I find it, I'm looking at my chanting and my japa and thinking, why am I not attentive? Because my desire is weak. My love, my desire to be with Krishna is so weak, so I'm not paying attention. So desire is the power of the jiva. Jiva has the power of desire. The desire brings forth the attention brings forth that's the willing part, the thinking and the feeling and the willing of the mind. The thinking, feeling, willing of the mind then gets communicated into the brain then sends signals through the body, etc., then things happen. Of course, there's so many demigods involved and modes of nature and everything else involved in all of that circuitry. But still, it originates from the desire of the jiva. So I propose that when we speak of hrida in respect of jiva, we're speaking of the place, the core of our consciousness and our energy of desire. And that we have to purify that. When we, Jaito Dharpana Marjanam, we have to purify that heart. So now our hearts our desires and that heart is first of all, it's shriveled up. It's nowhere near its capacity of its energetic capacity. It's become shriveled up by our confusion about where to direct that energy. As we direct our heart energy, our heartfulness, in that class we're talking about mindfulness, meditation, and moving from mindfulness to heartfulness, to looking how can we focus our heart, how can we focus our desire, our attentions towards the ultimate object of desire. To be in service, to be in love, and to receive love from the Supreme Lover Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So we have to purify, cleanse the heart so that it can again grow as we describe the Bhakti Lata Bija, that creeper of asha, that creeper of desire and hope can go and carry us to the lotus feet of Krishna. Kardama, as we can see, he saw, he could understand the heart of Devahuti. He could understand anyone's heart. We can aspire for that as well, to be able to be empathetic towards others, to open our hearts. That's another phrase that is used, to open your heart, to open yourself, to open your to see the connection between your heart and everyone else. And that's because of our connection with Krishna. Krishna says, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sanivishto. He's in our heart, but he's in everyone's heart. So in this way, we're all related. We have to bring our hearts together in this service of Krishna. So exploring the heart, exploring the consciousness, exploring the mind, these are all elements of our life in Krishna consciousness. We are here as spiritual scientists. We're here in the laboratory is this. Our laboratories are our own beings in which we are exploring and understanding what's going on from the angle and from the perspective, from the lens that is given by the Shastras. The Shastras give us these lenses, these tools to understand what's going on inside of ourselves so that we can begin to reorient chitta, vrittis, all of these elements, our subtle bodies, things that modern science has no clue about. Purposefully, they won't go there because of their religion of physicalism, because it's like speaking. I mean, I'm sure all of you on Sankirtan, you've met some fanatics, religious fanatics, and they're so fanatical they can't hear anything about anything that doesn't fit right into their box. So this is the rascal scientists. They're fanatics about their religion, their physicalism religion. They won't hear anything. It's sad. It's quite sad. But bit by bit, on the fringes at least, I mean, because like in every religion, there are the fanatics that are there at the extremes, and they're there, and what can you do? But in the general community we're seeing that more and more intelligent, scientifically minded personalities are thinking, yeah, this isn't working. Our plan to figure it all out with our formulas and instruments, it's not working. And it's of course, many people say, well, give us enough time. In a few centuries, it'll all work out. But others are saying, well, maybe there's a different way. Maybe there's another way to understand things, and are open to hearing. So let's hope that we meet those people, and we can give them Srila Prabhupada's books, and get them. And if you do meet someone really scientific, I suggest Atma Paradigm. They'll like it. So we have a few minutes for questions, comments, reflections.
Always different verses come to mind when people give classes and make points. So you're talking about the Kardama entering the hearts of all. So there's one verse actually in the very beginning of that chapter, Divinity and Divine Service, where Sudha Goswami is offering obeisances to Shukadev Goswami, who's described as who can enter the hearts of all. So he's also in that category. And it's
Uh-huh.
also, Yamaraj is also described as being able to enter the hearts of all too, in addition to Paramatma. It's interesting that song, Guru Mukha Padmavakya Chitare Koryake Arna Korya Mane Asha. They don't translate that second line, which says, I don't want to think of anything else other than my
there
Guru's
should be
words.
no other asha in my mind. No korio mone asha.
Yeah.
No other asha in my mind.
And there's one other thing I thought of. Oh yeah, you're talking about fanaticism. There was a meeting at a University of Florida, and they were like on evolution, and there was some pro-evolution, anti-evolution people there. But one of the speakers on the pro-evolution side was somebody who had been a Christian preacher, and he converted. And when I was listening to him, I thought he just went from being a religious fanatic to a scientific fanatic, but he remained a fanatic. It was so funny. So, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, there's a certain pleasure in fanaticism. Yes.
I just wanted to make another comment out of appreciation, because when I was studying psychology in school and neuroscience, it was like the same thing. It was like, well, so the light comes through your eyes and it hits your retina and it goes through your thalamus and then it goes to your visual cortex and it goes through all these layers. And then you have an image. And so everyone in class is like, so how are these images formed? Like, well, yeah. So they never give this explanation of what consciousness actually is. It's just like this mechanistic, like machine teaching of science, especially of the brain, without any excitement of the actual consciousness of things. And it's like, the second you ask that question of like, well, what is actually conscious then? They get like flustered, or they can't answer it, or it's like, that's kind of what pushed me more towards like a spiritual path. So anyways,
Not only there's no explanation of how we get the picture of a ball or so on. The actual amount of information, I learned this from this series, that the actual amount of information that gets transmitted through the eyeball into the brain is not enough. It's like in his slideshow, you saw a picture of a dog, I think it was, and then another picture which is kind of the outline.
right.
And somehow or other, it all gets filled in. And we see, and the problems of simultaneous, the time gap, the gap between the time that it takes to hear something, because you hear and process, hearing is a lot less information. So the brain can process the bits and bytes of hearing stuff much quicker than visual. But somehow we hear and see at the same time, and there's no explanation for that. So yeah, it's.
They call it filling. They say your brain fills everything in for you.
Yes, right. Okay. How do they do? Yeah, how does it do that?
Exactly. Whoa.
Yeah. No. There's so many gaps. Yeah.
Thinking, we heard Prabhupada mention this word rascal a lot, so one time I just looked it up, the dictionary. So the actual dictionary meaning is unprincipled.
Unprincipled.
So
yes.
So it's very fitting, actually. Probably rascals.
Yes. Good.
And I was thinking, Prabhu, we were talking about desire. Well, it seems to me, at least in my life, that I have a desire to be Krishna conscious. I guess I guess it's there, but it just seems that I'm working against my desire. So can you maybe Like maybe it's
Yeah,
like I'm not really becoming Krishna conscious. I'm trying to, and I'm desiring it, but somehow it's not happening, or maybe not happening at the rate my mind would think it would happen.
Well, when I looked up, I was studying, to prepare for this, I looked up heart in Vanipedia, right? And I was looking, how does Prabhupada use the term heart? And very often, or at least quite a few places, it's called cleansing the heart. So there was that gave me a little bit of understanding about, that this heart, our hearts, that repository within our being has become contaminated. And although by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, our original, our pure heart, because my understanding, and Jayadvaita Maharaj can help correct me if he's listening still, that the pure heart, the pure consciousness is covered. So in other words, we have a pure heart, which is wanting to be Krishna conscious, but it's become covered over by some material conditioning, which is I would suggest is the heart of the mind. So in other words, like mind also has its own, kind of heart, where there's feeling and there's all kinds of things going on. And that is simply under the control of the modes of nature. So the modes of nature are manipulating that according to karma and according to so many other different factors. So, and various kinds of conditioning. So that heart is not the pure heart. But the mind is the vehicle through which the body responds, and action and everything takes place through the vehicle of the mind. We energize, or we move in this world, beginning from our own, from conscious willingness through the mind into the body. Now, sometimes my suggestion, and this again is just based on my own kind of trying to piece it together, and I haven't yet found a clear scriptural, where I can lay this out. I'm waiting. I think this series by Akandati is going to really lay it out for me. But is that we surrender to Maya, and Maya kind of takes over. And so even though at the core, it's our desire is to be with Krishna, because we've turned our back somehow or other, and this is the how, but somehow we have moved our conscious, we've turned our attention towards the world of Maya, from Krishna's world. We've turned away from Krishna's world, and our consciousness is into Maya, and our real heart, which is by nature loving Krishna, just goes to sleep. It just sort of just turns off in some way, and Maya takes over, and then the desires and everything is just all starts to just come about out of the modes of nature mixing around. And when Krishna and Guru pierces through, but apparently, now here's the question, is it seems to be asleep, but it's not fully asleep, because at some point it starts to question. At some point, our heart of hearts, our true heart, breaks through. Our actual nature somehow breaks through by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. Somehow, by Agyata Sukriti, or somehow that true heart begins to break through, and then questioning comes. Is this everything? Is this all there is? Is it, all these things start to happen that begin to lead us into the realm of being Krishna conscious. But then Prabhupada says we have to declare a war on Maya, because we surrendered to Maya, and now we have to escape and surrender to Krishna. And Maya is not going to let go so easily, because she's Krishna's servant. She's accepted our surrender, our unconditional surrender, and she says, okay, before I let you go, you have to prove that you're sincere. I don't want to see you back here. I'm not going to let you just, you've got to prove yourself. And not only that, but I will help you. Maya then is my understanding, and again, Maharaj can correct me, that Maya, when we begin to turn towards Krishna, Maya's job changes. She's no longer serving Krishna as to keep us in the material world, but she serves Krishna to actually help us get out of the material world by exposing our conditioning, exposing our anarthas, exposing all these obstacles, so that we can then surrender to Krishna. Did that answer your question at all? Okay. Well, thank you. I should have ended earlier. But Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
In some ways, it also is still feeling like